Where in space is heaven located? Don't allow this question sound absurd or crazy to you, because this is the very same heaven you want to make and go after you have lived long enough on this earth. Today you will get to know the answer to this question. I am reading from my diary, Unraveling Mysteries, and this particular topic has to do with where in space is heaven located. Everybody wants to make and go to heaven after having lived long enough on this earth. But most people have never wondered or asked themselves, this heaven that I want to make and go, where is it actually located in space? Is it within our galaxy? Is it within our universe? Is it outside our universe? What is the nature of heaven? Is it a realm of corporeality or purely spirituality? Corporeality or purely spirituality? To fantasize about heaven is not a difficult thing, but actually deciphering what heaven is the difficult thing. Yet, we will have this mystery unraveled and cracked in this project. Allow your mind to wander and ponder about when the Bible said Jesus ascended to heaven. How did he ascend? Was he floating in space with a corporal body, or he transcended into another realm? At what distance and time could we say he arrived in heaven? What direction could we say he took to heaven? Finally, the heaven Jesus ascended to, is it within our galaxy, or within our universe, or outside our universe? These are the mysteries that will be unraveled in this project. These are the problems that will be solved by the end of this video. Before we proceed into critical and factual scientific analysis, permit me to make a hypothetical statement that will later on become a categorical and realistic statement before the end of this project. Don't judge me because this approach of mine is not different from the scientific approach. The statement is simply that heaven is not within our universe. Heaven is outside our universe, and heaven is the precursor of our universe. It is a common scientific knowledge that the universe keeps expanding, and there was a time where it was just the size of a grain of sand in the beach. This practically means there was a time when the universe would have been just the size of our galaxy, and there was a time when the universe would have been smaller than our galaxy, and there was a time when our universe would have been smaller than our solar system, smaller than the sun, smaller than Earth, smaller than a football, even small as a grain of sand, because it has been constantly expanding from a very long time ago, giving way for more galaxies and solar system to come to life. It was as though it was given a spiritual principle and command as to how it will be built in galaxies and solar systems without error. The universe was set in motion by a divine power, which I call God. Science call it Big Bang. I put it to you that the Big Bang was not spontaneous, rather, it was the decision of principles and command from an authority of consciousness and intelligence. The universe coming into existence is more than a mere Big Bang, because if we can say there was a time when the universe was smaller than a football, smaller than a table tennis, and even smaller as a grain of sand, it then automatically means that the then tiny universe had a space all around it. This simply means that the then tiny universe was in a unique space-time different from ours. But look at it today. It is filled with consciousness and intelligences. This is something that started off so small like a grain of sand in another space-time. Consciousness and intelligences do not come from unconscious and unintelligent substance. Commonsensically, you will be able to tell that the universe was set in existence and expansion by a conscious and intelligent being, which I call God, from another space-time, which I call heaven. This goes to show that heaven is not within our universe. Though heaven manifests ultimately in its own physical space-time, yet heaven is not characterized with the sort of physicalities in our space-time, which is the universe. This is simply to say that heaven is a spiritual realm where beings and entities cannot be seen with our physical eyes. The heaven that better the universe we live in is not one that has physical machines to physically create different planets, moons, suns, stars, galaxies, mountains, oceans there are, and ultimately the universe. But rather a heaven that wields a spiritual reality of power, principles, and commands to bring into existence planets, stars, moons, suns, galaxies, man, plants, animals, and ultimately the universe. Just imagine you telling the AI in your phone to create a story or an image for you because of the hardware and software reality that has been built into the phone by man. I know your phone is a machine, but you did not use any machine to convey that command from your mind and math to your phone. The command of your phone creating a story or an image did not originate from itself, but rather from another realm, which is you. If not for the reality and mechanism of your phone, such a command wouldn't have been executed. This is how it is between heaven, our existence, and the universe. There was a sort of spiritual reality and mechanism in the realm of heaven that made it possible for a command to be spoken that there should be the universe, there should be light, there should be physical and biological lives. If you check the creations in the world and in the universe, you will realize that there are far too many to have been physically created with physical machines. There are hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of unique creations in the universe. So far, the point that I have been driving at is that the universe is a creation of God and heaven. This being the case automatically means heaven is not within our universe. The nature of heaven couldn't be one where you will physically see Jesus and other angels walking about with your physical body and naked eyes. Because check the way the universe was created. The universe, before it was set in motion and expansion, it was once smaller than a table tennis, before it was spoken to in principles and commandments. After a long while, the pattern for stars creation was established. The pattern for creating galaxies was established. And the pattern for life creation was established. Billions of creations, yet no single machine was used but just a spoken word of principles and divine commandment. This means in heaven, before you can witness its nature, you would have to be a spiritual entity such as the soul. This will suffice to say when Jesus ascended to heaven, he wasn't literally floating in space. Rather, he transcended into another realm, which is heaven. It could be described with transferring certain codes from phone A to phone B. So when the codes get to phone B in a certain software, it manifests as an image of a bird. In summary, the heaven we want to make and go after we have lived long enough on this earth is not within our universe. Because according to science, there was a time when our universe was smaller than the size of a football, smaller than the size of a table tennis, before it was set in existential expansion, an act science calls the Big Bang. If the universe was once the size of a table tennis, it then literally means it was in a space, meaning space was all around it. It was within a space. This simply means that this space that we experience, this special universe that we experience, by the time it was smaller, just like a table tennis, it was within a space then. It was within a space-time. That space-time is what I call heaven. If the universe was once the size of a table tennis, it then literally means it was in a space, meaning space was all around it. In fact, it was in a kind of space-time which I call heaven. I have the confidence to call it heaven because consciousness and intelligence cannot come from a conscious and unintelligent substance except programmed as such by a conscious and intelligent being. Consciousness and intelligence cannot come from an unconscious and unintelligent substance. This simply means that, take for example, a gravel that is used in a construction site. Just pick up a gravel. You can, merely looking at it, you will know that it doesn't possess consciousness and it doesn't possess any intelligence. On its own, that gravel, left alone on its own, there is no way it can manufacture itself, or it can transform itself into a conscious and intelligent substance left alone on its own by itself. The only way it can maybe become a conscious and intelligent substance, or a part of a conscious and intelligent substance, is when it is acted upon by a conscious and intelligent being like humans. Let's take for example now that, okay, you grind the gravel now, you want to like add it up into include it in a robot, in an AI robot you want to manufacture, you want to create. You grind the granite, then you add it to a part of it. It becomes an additive in a certain part of it. But the gravel left alone on its own cannot, take that decision to invent something, to create something, to design something, to become a part of an intelligent setting, because it does not have it. And you cannot give what you do not have. The gravel does not have consciousness and intelligence. Left alone on its own, it cannot give consciousness and intelligence. That's how the universe was. The universe was small as a grain of sand. Not that it was a grain of sand, but by size, it was the size of a grain of sand. There was a time it was the size of a grain of sand, according to science, before the Big Bang took place. Before it was acted upon by force, which I call the divine force, which I call God. So God is the one that programmed the universe, that commanded the universe in principle on how it is going to be expanding, on how things are going to be created. So there is no way the universe that we are in today will be filled with consciousness and intelligence if it was not acted upon by a conscious and intelligent being, which I call God. Because picture the universe like gravel I mentioned earlier. Left alone on its own, there is no way it is going to give birth to all this consciousness there are in the universe, and all these intelligences there are in the universe, if it was not acted upon by conscious and intelligent being, which I call God. So consciousness and intelligence cannot come from unconscious and unintelligent substance except acted upon by a conscious and intelligent being. So in summary, the heaven we want to make and go after we have lived long enough on this earth is not within our universe. Because according to science, there was a time when our universe was smaller than the size of a football, smaller than the size of a table tennis, before it was set in existential expansion, an act science calls the Big Bang. If the universe was once the size of a table tennis, it then literally means it was in a space, meaning space was all around it. In fact, it was in a kind of space-time which I call heaven. I have the confidence to call it heaven because consciousness and intelligence cannot come from a conscious and unintelligent substance except programmed as such by a conscious and intelligent being. The existential expansion of our universe, including the pattern for creating of stars, planets, galaxies in the universe that was once small as a table tennis, including the different consciousness and intelligences there are, including physical and biological lives, countless or millions of unique creations there are, were all divinely instructed into existence by a spiritual being, which I call God, from another space-time, which I call heaven. You see, the heaven that you want to make and go after you have lived long enough on this earth is not within this universe that we are in, because heaven is the precursor, is the creator of the universe. Heaven is the one that set the universe in existential expansion and creation. So the heaven that we pray to make after we've lived long enough on this earth is not within our universe. Rather, it is outside of it, and it is even the precursor, the creator of our universe by God.